Hi, Dr. Price. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. And people who have seen your live earlier knows that we were just together not too long ago. But I always love seeing you and doing our What's Up doc.
Yes, good times. Good times. Today's a major election day here in Kansas City, and we were electioneering. So fun times.
Love it. Love it. Dr. Price, I didn't have an opportunity to tell you that some of our questions are really good questions, and they actually came from people that were on your master class.
Good.
So this is exciting. It's super exciting. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in. And for those who have not ever seen What's Up Doc, or for those who have seen it before, if you have a question or a comment that you want to go ahead and put below, Dr. Price has this wonderful skill that she's able to answer questions. I think it's a superpower, but hey, I have a bias towards her. I think she's amazing in every way. But these are questions that she has not seen yet or heard. So are you ready to use your superpower?
I am ready. And then also if you're watching, feel free if you have a question or a comment or a disagreement or support anything that's being said in this particular live, feel free to share it in the chat. And usually it comes through and we'll try to address it if we have time.
All right. Here's our first question, Dr. Price. Dear Dr. Price, we are running on fumes, morally and financially. We've cut everything we can, but leadership keeps asking us to do more with less. Honestly, we need to do more with more. How do I advocate for critical funding and support without sounding like a broken record? Or worse, being labeled as negative. We have so much that we need to do, and I'm feeling it from my team, but I'm also understanding from our executive C-suite, we just don't have the funds to do these things.
Yeah, let me first just say that I recognize that sentiment, and it is happening all around us right now, especially here in the U.S., both on a personal level for people, and then also at the institutional level. I wish I knew exactly what was going on with you, but let me say that not being able to have all of the story, here's my answer. If I were to get more information, I might have a different answer. But with just part of the story, here's what I think. There's this idea that we should think outside of the box, that we should try to attack the system that's broken. And I do agree that we should attack the system that's broken. That is a very much long-term strategy. In the short term, though, thinking inside the box is going to give you more agency, help you to feel like you're not fighting against reality. Because if your executives have decided and they're not going to make a different decision, you arguing with that reality is just going to make things painful for you and everyone who reports to you. And so, what does that look like? It is setting the budget constraints and saying, okay, this is our budget constraint, these are our resource constraints. And given these constraints, let me pull together 5, 7, 9 people into a room and talk about what our goal is within the constraints we have. Talk about what are the consequences if we can't figure it out within the constraints we have. Really unpack and let people talk about what's been happening. And this takes time, this is not fast. And after people talk about what's been happening, really think about what you've tried. What have you actually tried within the constraints you have? And what's been the results of those efforts? Too often, when I ask people what have they tried, the answer is a whole lot of nothing, but just really trying to break the system or make the system behave differently than it has been behaving forever. Um, but that realization is absolutely imperative and important. And once you understand what have been the results of what you've tried, now let's talk about the obstacles, the things that are getting in the way of you reaching your goal. What does it look like if I were to ask the senior leaders from their perspective? What do they think? That's an empathy building exercise to go through with other people. And then once you've kind of unpacked all that, really just imagine within the constraints you have, what are all the possibilities of what can be done to reach your goal? Try not to stifle, try not to say things like we've tried that before, try not to say things like we can't do that. Because if you can just open your mind to what is possible within those constraints, what I've found, not always, but most of the time, is that there are some things we can do within this horrible situation in the meantime. Now, long-term strategy is always to try to figure out how we can get more resources or um, not be in this situation when we're also strapped. But in the short term, you have to figure out something that works right now. And that would be my best suggestion to just truly it's a coaching process. Everyone's coaching process works if you use it. The one I am most fond of is called Grow. And what I just did was walk you through goal creation, reality assessment, brainstorming options, and then deciding on your way forward. And when you can follow this process, you'll find that it'll help you focus on the things that really matter and really move the needle. I want to double down though on that's my advice without really knowing exactly what's happening inside your organization.
Dr. Price, I love this because, like I keep telling people, you have no idea who sent this email.
No.
Only I have the idea. And I'm going to say a couple months ago, we had this person send in an email and they had talked to us, and you had answered the question for them regarding budget cuts within their company. And they brought people into the room, and he asked his team, what are some ways that we can cut budget without cutting people? And then his leader was like, okay, I appreciate you doing all of that, but we're thinking about cutting people, not about saving money on a printer or a copier. And you had given this person advice to actually have a conversation with their boss. And so that it's coming from the same person. And so I just kind of want to share that to see if that changes how you would approach the situation.
Yeah, so again, with me still not knowing fully, like I basically know two questions from this person. I would say there are two options for us every single day. One is to stay in love, the other is to go in peace. My old boss used to say that we think that there's a third option, which is to stay in hate. You know, you can't grow tulips everywhere. The climate's not made for it. And so sometimes you might just be in the wrong environment. If I find that the organizational values are here and my values are here and there's no overlap, you are absolutely in the wrong place. If you have some overlap that looks kind of like this, then you're in the right place. There's some places for you to be able to work. It's never going to look like this. You're never going to be like completely aligned to your organization, even if it's your own. But when I hear like persistent challenges like this, like over and over again, it sounds like a values misalignment. Um, I don't know. I might be going too far too quickly.
Mhm.
I would need more information. This is a one-way conversation, right? I have two questions from the person, um, and I don't have the ability to ask clarifying questions. But in the short term, what I do believe is that sometimes we try to be inside of an organization and think we're going to change the entire culture single-handedly by ourselves, and that's unlikely. And so it is also important to recognize when you're just planted in the wrong spot.
I think that's powerful. You can't grow tulips everywhere. Love it. Love it. Thank you, Dr. Price. Our next question is, Dear Dr. Price, my team is full of smart, capable people who are terrified of conflict.
Mm.
We dodge every tough conversation in the name of just keeping the peace. But now the silence is working against us. How do I help lead my team to have conversations that maybe discomfort, cause them discomfort, and have real conversations that moves us forward as an organization? Because as you keep saying, there are people at the end of the data points, and we keep wanting to pull data, and we're finding out that this data is just allowing us to postpone and procrastinate on doing exactly what we need to do. But we can't have that conversation.
Yeah. Um, I want to first just say that I have been your people who are afraid to have conversations for different reasons, but
Mhm.
I have been that person. I used to be incredibly aloof, mostly logical and reasonable and objective. I did not feel things in my body when I was uncomfortable. And so therefore, I would avoid conversations because I always found out that I was hurting people's feelings and I didn't want to have to deal with the backlash of that. Today, what tends to happen is now that I feel people deeply and care about people deeply, I found that sometimes, even if intellectually I want to be uncomfortable and I want to engage in a hard conversation, my body violates me. Like
Mhm.
sometimes I feel warmth in my body. My hands start to sweat, my voice starts to change, and sometimes I don't even know what's happening there. And that's my own thing to work out. So I just want to say that this answer is based on the fact that I don't like to be uncomfortable either. When I read The Five Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni, and he shared that pyramid of the five dysfunctions, the bottom of that pyramid is absence of trust. The second part on that pyramid is fear of conflict. And while not linear, it is highly likely that if you don't have trust on your team, that people are going to be afraid of conflict because no one wants to lose friends,
Mhm.
especially if you live and work in a small community where I'm going to have to see these people later, or you are the soccer coach for my kids' soccer team, and I made you upset at work. And so what I think we have to do is to first make sure that trust is there and psychological safety is there, and that people are whole and healthy beings, knowing that if I disagree with you, that does not, one, mean that I am going to lose my job, or that does not mean that now you're not going to work with me. And there's some simple ways to build trust on teams that people have rejected over the years. One of those is using a tool like the Myers-Briggs type indicator as a personality instrument to let people know when something is just someone's personality versus when something is maladaptive behavior, or like someone's behaving poorly,
Mhm.
and we need to have a conversation about that. That's one. Like, how do we build trust and get to know each other? And that is not efficient. And that's why most leaders struggle with it, because the people work is not efficient. Process stuff is efficient, but people work is not efficient. It doesn't happen fast. And so as we're working on building trust with teams, the next step is building people's capacity to be uncomfortable.
Mhm.
We're not used to it. When we are uncomfortable, and if we're honest, none of us are really signing up to be uncomfortable. The people who are great at healthy conflict, sometimes it's because the issue is not one that causes them discomfort. It's easy for them to talk about. But if we think about the time when we've had to have a difficult conversation with our spouse or partner, or have a conversation with a parent or a child, and the relationship is at risk, and how sometimes we just shut down instead of just stepping up, that'll give us the empathy we need to be able to share this information with other people. There's a class that we teach about conflict reaction styles and helping people to know if they're competitive or avoidant or accommodating or compromising. And sometimes even just knowing that about each other helps us to develop the skill to be able to engage in conversation. What I will say is it is slightly dangerous to just expect people to fight and we have not taught them the rules of engagement.
Yeah.
It's like having a street fight versus being a jujitsu competitor. So how do we teach people the skill that makes for good, healthy conflict versus what I tend to see more often is actually artificial harmony does get rewarded. Sitting in the meeting and going, "Yep, yep, yep, I agree, I agree, I agree," and then taking stuff offline and back channels tends to get rewarded. Whereas the person who speaks up all the time to say what is wrong and have a questioning mindset, those people tend not to be the most rewarded. And so I think it's twofold. One, let's focus on trust and building people's capacity to have conflict. But two, pay attention to what gets rewarded inside our organization. Are we asking people to engage in more conflict when what gets rewarded is artificial harmony? And if true, we have to address that before people are going to feel safe.
Dr. Price, I'm just going to do a little shameless plug because as I'm hearing you speak, I'm also understanding how important it is to have some self awareness, right? Because if you lack any type of self awareness and you don't know who you are, how can you move forward? And shameless plug, we do have a session on Monday. And it's something that we decided to offer the community because there's a lot of people that have been talking about budget constraints. And so we have a event on Monday, the 14th. If you go to livelyparadox.com/events, you will find it, and it's Unleash Your Leadership. And why I like it, Dr. Price, just based off of what you're talking about right now, I think it's important because I can see where you and I used to butt heads because I'm like, Nicole, I need this on this date. And you're like, Jocelyn, is that the drop dead date or is that your date? Like we kept butting heads because of our personalities. But once we came to an understanding of how to communicate about that, it hasn't been an issue. And so I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah, it's like if you tell me the date you need something by, I'm gonna meet that deadline. But if you really want it on Wednesday, but you're asking for it on Thursday, then let's just be honest about what day you want it. Tell me you want it on Wednesday, right?
right,
I'm not gonna do it early. It's
right,
not my personality style. But too often people don't know these things about each other, and that's not. It's easy for us to think that that's just behavior, that's
mhm,
negative behavior, when it's really a preference for how to work. And we have to talk
right,
about what good looks like for both of us. And I also tend to be very pointed in the way that I talk, and you tend not to be.
right,
And so sometimes when I have to watch myself, when it's two things, right? I have to watch myself when I'm in work mode and I'm like this, instead of what you're typically used to when I'm not in work mode, which is, "Hey, girl, how's it going?" And, I have to watch myself, but also you knowing that about me helps you to grant me some grace in that instance. And these things are the foundation on which people can fight in ways that's healthy, instead of thinking that, one, we're not gonna fight, because people do fight. It's just like, is it happening in front of you, or are you losing tons of money because it's happening in back channels after the meeting, in the meeting after the meeting, private conversations at the bar during happy hour? Um, because people do have disagreements, and if it looks like they don't have disagreements, I got a newsflash for you, honey. It's happening, you're just not aware.
right. And it's like this. Tools are just useful if you actually use them, right? And so Myers-Briggs, the Myers-Briggs assessment is just a tool to
Yeah,
utilize, just like the coaching model. It's
right.
a tool, and but it's only useful if you actually utilize it. So I just
Yeah.
want to throw that in there. Dr. Rice, there's two really good questions that I want to get to.
Okay, we've been 20 minutes, so I'll cut my answer shorter.
Okay, so the first one is Dr. Price. My team is mentally just gone. First, it was the holidays, then it was school closures from the record breaking snowstorms. Now we're in spring break. And now, with the shift in the White House, the executive orders are directly impacting our operations. We're in a large agricultural and farming co op. We supported the current president, but the new tariffs are constantly changing and it's crushing us. Everyone's overwhelmed in my organization, distracted, and short tempered. How do I refocus this masterful group of people and teams so that we can work to get to our end goal? And I
Yeah.
need help getting their attention.
Oh my God, this answer is the easiest one of the day, and it is negative brainstorming. If you have never used the negative brainstorming tool, I want you to Google it and use the negative brainstorming tool. You can do it yourself. I think it works better with the facilitator. And of course, I can help you with that. But bring people in the room and talk about, get this stuff out. Like, too often we're being pushed to be like, um, positive about everything, even when things aren't positive. But it's like, pull folks in the room and talk about all these things that are horrible, help people get all this stuff out. And then we got to figure out which of these things are high impact, versus high probability of happening. And many today, in today's environment right now, lots of things are high impact
Mhm.
and high probability because they have already happened. And I can only imagine having a candidate that you support then cause this kind of disruption to your business, because that's not usually how it happens. But let's get everybody in the room and then start talking to which things are in our control versus which things are out of our control versus which things we can influence, and get an agreement to only talk about the things that are in our control or the things we influence. And then let's get busy putting together our risk mitigation strategy for how we're going to execute in the next 30, 60, 90 days, and then what that might look like for the next 3 to 5 years, if we can plan out that far, because sometimes we can't, right? And it's not just about leading through ambiguity, it is also about how to build resiliency how to be adaptable when things are constantly changing. We we are not as skilled as we should be related to change. And I'm talking about me too. You know, recently there was an update on my phone, and this update on my phone, I can't find what I need in the way that I need to find it. And for a second, I'm irritated. When I don't have my electric brush, I was speaking last week and I forgot to take my electric toothbrush, and I had to brush my own teeth, for goodness sake. It These types of things are constant irritants because we have lost our ability, if we ever even had it, to be willing, able, and nimble to handle change. And the negative brainstorming exercise, instead of all this stuff just being in our head, we get it out, we get it documented, and now we have something tangible for us to react to versus just screaming into the void. I am a fan of the negative brainstorming tool. If you need our help to facilitate that experience with you, let us know, but you can absolutely do it yourself. All of the instructions are available and accessible online if you just Google negative brainstorming.
I love that. I love that. I would add to it, but you said it perfectly. And I really want to get to this last question. And so this one's related to someone who actually read the book Spark the Heart. Okay.
Okay.
So they read your book. It says, Dear Dr. Price, I have someone on my team who's been underperforming for months. Every time I think about letting them go, I hesitate. But then I read Spark the Heart, and the story that you told about your ear hustling days in the airport hit me. When should you start firing someone? It's probably the moment you think of it. What if the heart part of me still wants to give them another chance, another opportunity because I'm aware of their living circumstances and situation? How do I know if I'm being gracious or I'm just avoiding the hard truth?
Yeah. So thank you very much for reading the book. I know sometimes people buy the book and don't read the book. So I first want to just express a little gratitude for you reading the book. I am trying to find the page where I talk about a coaching approach, because I think too often we believe that empathy means agreement, that empathy also means like stepping down instead of stepping up. I think that we think empathy means that not having any expectations, or that empathy and accountability are enemies instead of allies. All things not true.
Mm-hmm.
What is true is that if you care a lot about this person, you have to help them build their resiliency based on what's going on in their life. That's your job,
Mm-hmm.
actually. And so I just want to be super clear that what's in the front cover of this book, When Should You Fire Someone the Minute You Think of It, was once leadership wisdom that I espouse to. It is currently not.
Correct.
Today, what I think is important is that we have a conversation that says, hey, here are one, how about, first of all, let's back up. Are the goals clear and explicitly written out? Is everybody super clear about what the objectives are? If not, start there. If the objectives are super clear, are we doing check-ins and one-on-ones to see what kind of progress we're making on these objectives? That's step number 2. If both of those things are in place, now it's time for us to have what's called an alignment conversation. And again, this is related to one of my coaching models that I think is great. And it goes something like this. Hey, the last 3 or 4 months, I've noticed that these objectives have not been met. I recognize that you have all of these things going on. I would like to work together to talk about how we're going to help you meet your goals, given everything that you have going on. Can we talk about that now? It is what your goals are, honestly, and then you need to find out what their goals are.
Mm-hmm.
But in an alignment conversation, the leader is the one, because you're so close to wanting to fire this person and you don't want to. Sometimes I wonder, do they even know? Because in my experience, when I was working in HR, many times the leaders would come into HR talking about wanting to fire someone, and the person would have no idea that they were not meeting the basic qualifications of the job. They had never been explicitly told. I have been on the other side of that, when I thought I was doing a fantastic job, only to find out that I just wasn't good at reading through the tea leaves, that someone was unhappy with my performance and what I was delivering. What the alignment conversation does is help to make sure we're not talking about people, we're talking to people.
Mhm.
This is what I need. Here's what you're going through. Let's work together to talk about how we can reach these goals despite what you have going on. And then if they agree, now you're still going to walk them through the grow model. The thing is, you have already decided what the goal is. And now together you're going to talk about what are the consequences if you all can't figure this out. And this is an opportunity for them to share and realize how close to suddenly they are. There was a book I read called Fierce Conversation, and it says, how does someone go bankrupt? And the answer is gradually, then suddenly, right? Like it is not just overnight. Like people, this happens over time. And then I think it's important to talk about what's been going on. And this is them talking, you asking questions. This is the reality, getting the R and grow part. And it's like, what have they tried to meet their objectives given their situation? What have been the results of what they've tried given their situation? What have been the obstacles that have gotten in their way given their situation? If you were to ask someone else, given their situation, what would that someone else say? And then, based on all of that, do you think it's possible for you to reach the goals that are set out in front of you? If the answer is no, if the answer is yes, I don't know how. All right, good, right? Let's sit here and let's brainstorm and talk about what would you do if anything were possible? What would you do if you were having this conversation with me? What is your gut telling you to do? Because these are these situations where sometimes we find out that someone just basically doesn't have transportation to work. Perhaps there's something we can do with a partner to help them get transportation to work. Maybe it's that somebody is responsible for 100% of their caregiving. Maybe this is a situation where we can help them think about and explore options to help with that. I don't know. But what I do know is that too often we just don't have the flat footed, strong backbone conversation to say, hey, if we can't figure this out, I'm afraid we're going to have to separate. And I want you here.
Right.
So let's spend some time talking about what's going on with you and what I need. Um, and this is the second time my answer has been grow, but that's because good, solid coaching does really impact performance. It helps people to focus. And this is incredibly important when people are in tough situations, actually, because the alternative is bad. I'm going to be in a tough situation without a job. That makes my tough situation even worse. So please have the conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Price. And I just want you all to know that we utilize Grow inside of our organization as well. We actually have a session that's going to come up with us. But for those who have not seen Grow, I know it's in Dangerous Indifference, but we changed the title of that book and the cover. I don't have it on me. It's an orange book, correct, Dr. Price?
It is. It's called Culturally Responsive Leadership. And I also teach, I'm a master coach for Inside Out Development who teaches the Grow model as well. But I want to say it is not, it's simple and it's also easy.
Yeah.
The thing is, too often we decide for people, we want to give advice instead of asking good, solid questions because people have agency. Folks know what to do. They just aren't always doing what they know. And people wake up every day and they want to do a good job. No one's sitting on the side of their bed going, hey, how can I be just a failure today at the thing that pays my livelihood? And if we can get our heads around that everyone has skill, talent, and ability that we're just not tapping into. And honestly, that in today's environment, hard stuff happens. And at the risk of sounding insensitive, our job is to help build capacity to handle hard stuff.
Yeah.
It is not just hard stuff happens and then I give up. That is not helpful to anyone. It's not helpful to the person you're leading, and it's also not helpful to the work that you're trying to do together.
Absolutely. I'm going to say this. If you are interested in getting the PDF of the Grow model, put Grow in the chat. I will connect with you on whichever platform that you decide to post that on.
Here's Jocelyn, excuse me for interrupting you. What I think is probably better is just Google Grow if you need it. And if you need our help, it just like, what does coaching look like? Let us then reach out to us and let us know how we can support you in that. And in fact, if there's anything that we're telling you to Google, you can always
reach out.
drnicoleprice.com, schedule a meeting to talk with us about it, because our role is to help build capacity in leaders. We can't do all of it, but we can help you to build the capacity in yourself and also build the capacity in others.
All right, Dr. Price, we actually went 10 minutes over, but we had some really great questions and even better answers to those questions. And so I want to thank everyone that continues to send emails to info@drnicoleprice.com or Jocelyn@livelyparadox.com so that we can continue our What's Up Doc sessions with you all. We look forward to seeing you and hearing from you for next month. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you.